Before we dive into code, let's establish the single most important principle: props down, events up. Imagine a parent component as a manager and a child component as an employee. The manager gives instructions and data down to the employee. These are props. The employee reports progress or requests action up to the manager. These are events. This clear one-way flow prevents chaos and makes your application's logic easy to follow.
Let's start with props. A prop is simply a custom attribute you can register on a component. When a value is passed to a prop attribute, it becomes a property on that component instance. Think of a user profile component. It needs to know which user to display. The parent component, which holds the user data, passes this information down as a prop. To receive data, a child component must first explicitly declare the props it expects to receive. This is done using the props option in the component script. By declaring props username, the child component is creating a contract, telling Vue and other developers, I am designed to accept a piece of data called username from my parent. This declaration is the first and most crucial step. With the child ready to receive, the parent can now pass the data. In the parent's template, you use the vbind directive, or its colon shorthand, to bind the parent's data to the child's prop. For example, current username colon username creates a reactive link. Now, if current username changes in the parent, the username prop in the child will automatically update, triggering a re-render. Once the prop is received, the child component can use it inside its template and script just like any other data property. You can display it using mustache syntax like username, or access it in methods via this.username. This allows the child to be a flexible and reusable template, dynamically rendering whatever content its parent provides. This brings us to the most critical rule of props: one-way data flow. A child component should never, ever directly mutate a prop. Data flows down from parent to child. If the child were to change the prop, it would also affect the parent state, creating a confusing, hard-to-debug situation. Vue helps enforce this by issuing a console warning if you attempt to modify a prop directly. But what if the child needs to work with the prop's value, for example, to format it or use it as an initial value for local data? Instead of mutating the prop, the correct pattern is to define a local data property that uses the prop as its initial value, or, even better, use a computed property that depends on the prop. This respects the one-way data flow while giving the child the flexibility it needs. To make your components more robust and self-documenting, you should always validate your props. Instead of a simple array of strings, the props option can be an object where you specify the type, whether it's required, a default value, and even a custom validator function. This catches common errors early and makes your component's API crystal clear to anyone who uses it. So, we've mastered sending data down, but what happens when the child needs to communicate back up? For example, if a user clicks a delete button inside a to-do item child component, the parent total list component is the one that actually needs to remove the item from its array. The child can't change the parent's data, so how does it signal that this action needs to happen? This is where events come in. A child component can emit a custom event to notify its parent that something significant has occurred. The parent can then listen for this event and run a method in response. Think of it like a doorbell. The child rings the bell, emits an event. It doesn't enter the house and do things itself. It simply signals, and the parent decides how to respond. Inside the child component script, you use the built-in $emit method to send the event. The first argument to $emit is a string, which is the name of your event. It's a best practice to use kebab case for event names. This is typically done inside a method that is triggered by a user action, like a click handler. Now, the parent component needs to listen for that signal. In the parent's template, where you use the child component, you use the vOn directive, or its @ shorthand, followed by the exact event name the child emits. You then assign a parent method to execute when the event is heard. So @deleteRequest will listen for the deleteRequest event and call the specified method. Often, just knowing an event happened isn't enough. The parent needs data associated with that event. For our to-do item example, the parent needs to know which item to delete. You can pass a data payload as the second argument to .emit. This payload will be passed directly as an argument to the parent's listener method, giving the parent all the context it needs to act. Just like with props, it's a modern best practice to declare the events a component can emit. This is done using the emits option, which is an array of event names. This self-documents the component, making it clear what signals it can send, and it can also help Vue optimize event listeners. You can even use an object to validate the event's payload, similar to prop validation. Let's put it all together and see the full communication loop with a classic counter. The parent owns the count state and passes it as a prop to a child. The child displays the count and has an increment button. When clicked, the child emits an increment event. The parent listens for this event and updates its own count state. This change then reactively flows back down to the child via the prop, updating the display. This is the complete props down, events up cycle. This pattern of passing a value down and emitting an event to update it is so common, especially for form inputs, that Vue provides a powerful shortcut, vModel on a component. What looks like two-way binding is actually just syntactic sugar for our props down, events up pattern. It simplifies the parent component's template significantly. So how does vModel work? By default, using vModel on a component is equivalent to passing a prop named modelValue and listening for an event named update.modelValue. The child component must declare the modelValue prop and emit the update.modelValue event with the new value. This makes your custom components work just like native input elements. Let's quickly recap the core concepts. Props are for passing data down from parent to child. They are your component's public API and should be treated as one-way and immutable by the child. Events are for sending messages up from child to parent, signaling that an action has occurred, often carrying a data payload. Mastering this fundamental separation is the key to well-structured Vue applications. You are now equipped with the fundamental pattern for building robust, interactive Vue applications. Always remember the mantra, props down, events up. By consistently applying this principle, validating your props, and declaring your events, your components will become predictable, reusable, and powerful. Thank you for watching and happy coding!